issue. Many of us wanted to be on the Budget Committee because we see what a critical moment our country is in. We see the very dire straits that we have put ourselves in because of the fiscal irresponsibility of Washington. And some of us believe that we don't have a lot of time to get this in order. And so I was looking forward to the opportunity to serve on the committee that would design the blueprint for our entire fiscal policy for this year and hopefully beyond. I think this is a fundamental responsibility, frankly, of any responsible organization to have a budget. I ran a small business for years, my own little business. We always had a budget. The corner pizza shop has a budget. We are the biggest enterprise in the world, the United States government. We spend $3.6 trillion, and for the majority party to choose, really, I have to say cynically, to choose not to even write a budget, to abdicate that fundamental responsibility to lay out for the American people how much money they want to spend, on what they want to spend it, where the money is going to come from, to abdicate that responsibility is really shocking. But of course, to make matters worse, they have a statutory obligation to do this, so it's actually also illegal. And here we are without a budget. We're about to run out of this year's funding. When we come back from the August break, we're going to be passing some huge omnibus. Who knows what's in that? We have a completely broken down process. I believe it has contributed to where we are today with this debt limit. And by the way, a brief aside, if I could, about this debt limit issue, because we had a discussion today in the Banking Committee. Federal Reserve Board Chairman Bernanke was there to testify, and it was a useful discussion. Unfortunately, after I left the committee, I learned later that Senator Schumer began to discuss some of my remarks with Chairman Bernanke, and in the process, he grossly mischaracterized what I said. Now, I'm quite sure that Senator Schumer would never intentionally mischaracterize the remarks of one of his colleagues. So what I'd like to do is just clarify what was actually said so that in the future it won't be mischaracterized. I had observed that the Treasury will have more than enough cash coming in the form of tax receipts to pay the interest on our debt in the event that we didn't raise the debt ceiling on August 2nd. I immediately went on to say, and I will now quote myself if you will allow, I said, now I don't know of anybody that suggests that we can or should go indefinitely without raising the debt ceiling. And I have argued that we would certainly be much better off reaching an agreement and raising the debt ceiling prior to August 2nd. End quote. That was characterized by Senator Schumer as follows, and I will quote him. He said, for a smart guy, now he was referring to me, believe it or not, I mean, to say we can pay the obligations and not pay the rest and that's just fine, wow, I'm sort of surprised at it. Well, obviously, I never said it was just fine. What I have said is that we've got a dire crisis on our hands and we need to do something about it. And I don't know that we're going to get another opportunity than the opportunity over this question of whether and when and by how much we'll raise the debt limit. But I'm not going to sit by idly, and I'm not going to go along with some deal that raises the debt limit without making the real cuts in spending we need and the real process reform. So, Senator Sessions, as you know, some of us have advocated that there be a simple deal, if you will, preferably one that we would discuss in public, one that we'd have a debate over, one we'd have a vote on. And the deal is simply this. We will agree to raise the debt limit as the President has asked, by the full amount that the President has requested, provided only that the President agree to put us on a path to a balanced budget. That's it. We call it cut, cap, and balance. It has some immediate cuts. It has spending caps that put us on that path to a balanced budget, and it calls for the adoption of a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. We had a Democratic president named William Clinton, who together with the Republican Congress in the 90s acknowledged the importance of reaching a balanced budget. None of us think we can do it overnight. None of us are calling for that. But back then in the 90s, they decided they would strive for it, and in fact, they achieved it. We reached a balanced budget, ran a modest surplus. All I'm asking today, as we confront this issue and as we contemplate saddling ourselves and our kids and our grandkids with still more debt than the record level we have now, what I'm suggesting is, at the same time, we take the measures necessary to get us out of this mess, to prevent us from going further down this unsustainable path, and to get to the point where we don't continue running deficits. A path to a balanced budget. Cut spending now, statutory spending caps, and a balanced budget amendment. And we now have a big majority of Republican senators who've co-sponsored this bill that would raise the debt ceiling by $2.4 trillion, provided that we get these changes. And I'm increasingly optimistic that the House might very well pass a bill that would raise the debt limit, contingent only on this path to a balanced budget. So while we're down here today, I think this is what we ought to be talking about. We shouldn't go on to an appropriation bill that has no context because there's been no budget. We ought to be focused on getting this problem solved and then get back to the regular order of having a budget that defines the level of spending and where that money is going to come from and allows us to pursue the ordinary appropriation process so that we can exercise our constitutional responsibility to control the purse strings of this federal government. Senator Sessions, I thank you for raising this issue. This is a very important issue, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's a travesty that we don't have a budget in this body, and I certainly hope we don't go further down this path.
Well, I thank Senator from Pennsylvania. He's been such a fabulous addition to the committee.